All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the SAU41 Governing Board meeting of December 15th, 2022 to order. Welcome. Have a quorum. All right, I need, if I could, ask someone to be a process observer. Boy, everyone looks away from me so fast when I say that. Anyone?
I'll do it.
Thanks, Hal. Just because I was staring at you.
Just have to find a piece of paper and a pen, but I'll do my best.
Do we have any agenda adjustments?
I do not have any adjustments.
Does anyone else have any agendas? Okay. Moving on to the approval of minutes. I will need a motion to approve the minutes of October 13th, 2022. The members absent were Marsano, Mikovic, Stoll, and Williams. The following amendments were offered. Page 8, line 7, replace R with is.
So moved.
So moved from Carol.
Second.
Second from Amy. Anyone have any comments? Concerns? All those in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, thank you. 902. All right. And now I need to get the minutes for the non-public. Again, same people were absent. There were no changes. So anyone have any questions? Any changes? Oh, can I get a motion? Hello. Motion would be good.
Second.
Carol and Ken, I think. Here we go. And now any changes, anything? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. 902. Thank you. All right. 609.
Pardon me, Madam Chair, do we have public hearing approval, minutes approval from October 13th?
Oh, I apologize for that. Yep, thank you. I need to have I need someone to give me a motion to approve as presented the public hearing
So moved.
minutes. Carol, second.
Second.
Amy. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Opposed?
No.
In favor, okay. Abstentions? 902. Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
All right, the public hearing, we really can't start it, can we?
Posted for 6:15, we should wait.
Okay, wait till 6:15.
If you want to skip down and go into discussions to fill the 5 minutes, we can do that.
Expense and revenue? Okay. All right, we will go down to discussion of the SAU revenue and expense report. Is that Kelly or?
I'll take it. In your board packet, we prepared the revenue and expense report as of 11/28/22. Right now, we are under expense-wise $95,532. That is primarily due to the unfilled position. We do have a couple candidates, and we're interviewing for that. So we do hope to have somebody on board after the new year. That has gone very well, and I'd like to thank Lauren, Gina, and everybody else that was involved in that. And we'll have an update probably via email as well as at the individual boards on the candidate. In terms of the revenue is running below the projections at this time. So we have a budget balance of $43,820. The projected fund balance, the beginning balance on 7/1/2022 was $260,385. The net income is being projected at $43,820, which could give us a potential fund balance of $630,23 of $304,205. which is above where we'd like to be in terms of our fund balance projections, but I think the projections will change based on the hirings and different things that will happen in the spring semester. And I'd be happy, along with Kelly, to take any questions you might have on the revenue and expense report.
Well, Andy, I do have one question. I didn't hear because it's so echoey. When is it that you're estimating you will know if you're hiring someone?
Probably over the holiday break.
Okay, so in the next few weeks, kind of.
Right, the goal would to be have them seated and in place, if all goes well, for when we start back after the new year.
So should we assume, as we discussed tonight, should we assume that expenditure is going to happen? I mean, is that the prudent thing to do? Or would it be prudent to assume something else?
I think we're at what I would call the contract discussion phase and things like that. So I think that brings us pretty far along. So I think I think there's a high level of confidence, but I never like to say it's definite until somebody signs the contract.
And we have in these numbers estimated the cost that would be associated with that
understood.
hire.
I understand. I just wanted to know if they're close, if the odds are good that we're going to have the expenditure, then we can discuss on that assumption.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? 1.5 minutes worth of questions, anyone?
I have a question that'll take 1.5 minutes to say.
To get out.
Well, I can give a quick update on another matter. As many of you know, there's a projected storm for tomorrow. We are watching that closely. Hollis and Brookline are right on the line between snow and rain. So so that will have to be a morning decision. I just want folks to know that in the decision-making process, the other piece that's entering into our thoughts more and more is staffing, because we have to be conscious of what schools close elsewhere, because staff won't be able to get there, what daycares are closing, and there are some local daycares that again impact our staff. We are running on very thin margins. Our principals are still covering almost on a daily basis to make everything happen. They're just not the bodies. We are a little bit excited because we are about to enter the 6 weeks when our college students come home, and they give us a window of support, and they do a fabulous job, especially those that are looking to become educators, because it gives them a realistic idea of what they're getting into, while at the same time it gives us some bodies that we desperately need. And that's kind of going to be the factor throughout the remainder of the year for snowstorms. So there's just that one little piece. The other piece would be, we've discussed it at the co-op board, the Hollis board, and we'll be discussing it next week at the Brookline board. We're running into the same difficulty on the Monday, January 2nd, I believe it is, because of daycare closings and staffing. We'll be discussing it next week at Brookline, but the other two boards have adopted that date to actually be closed and just add a day at the end of the school year to address that issue. And it's not something we've run into the past, but as I think any business knows right now, the hiring of employees is very, very difficult. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking us to 6:15. I need a motion that the board recess until the conclusion of the public hearing of the SAU proposed. Pardon me?
So moved.
Carol?
Or do I need to read this one?
No, I said it.
Just making sure.
Second? Second. Oh, Kelly? Okay. All right, the board recessed at 6:16. And I believe Mr. Corey will be doing the presentation. Oh. How about we take a vote on that? All those in favor of going into a recess? Opposed? Okay, 12-0. Hi, Karen. All right. Thanks for the vote. All right, now, I believe we cannot show it up here, is that right?
Yes, we're having some technical difficulties, but Rich is able to run the slide presentation, so anybody viewing from home will be able to see the presentation, and it was in your board packets, and we apologize for that, but for some reason, the laptop and the projector will not sync up. So we start tonight's presentation. The first slide is the wonderful picture of our SAU. I will remind the SAU board that at some point in the future, we're going to have to examine that facility because it continues to age and need repairs, and we will have to decide the viability of that for the long term. In terms of the SAU budget, it is made up of a budget subcommittee. From the SAU office, I sit on the committee, Gina, the assistant superintendent, Kelly, our business administrator, and Linda, our senior assistant business administrator. Brookline is represented by Allison Marzano from the Brookline School Board and Brian Rader from the Brookline Finance Committee. Hollis is represented by Carol Roy from the Hollis School Board and Mike Harris from the Hollis Budget Committee. The co-op is represented by Krista Whalen from the Co-op School Board and Darlene Mann from the Co-op Budget Committee. The process is very similar. The SAU coordinates the development of the budget, similar to what we do for rounds. Then we convene as a subcommittee and go through, review the presentations, and make decisions based on feedback. Pardon me. Once that feedback has been presented, the committee members take it back to their individual boards, whether it be a budget committee, a finance committee, or a school board, and again, bring back to us more information so we can arrive at our budget. Tonight's agenda, we have the budget comparisons from last year to the adjusted budget. We have the budget drivers, the budget components, the budget breakdown by category, an update on the unassigned fund balance, revenue projections, and budget apportionment, and then a draft of the warrant article, and then we would take questions from the public. Once we leave the public hearing, we would then allow questions from the board. So the snapshot for SAU41, currently the SAU overall combined budgets of the four entities, Hollis, Brookline, the Co-op, and the SAU, is $55.6 million. So $55,600,000 is our combined budget. The SAU represents $2,107,176, or 4% of that total. Brookline is at $11,032,555. Hollis is at $15,573,557, and the co-op is $26,898,442. So therefore, the SAU represents approximately 4% of the overall combined budgets. Continuing on the snapshot, the number of students is 2,429. That's an increase of 19 students. We are seeing growth in our elementary schools, which is kind of contradicts what most of the state is seeing. If you read any of the recent articles, it talks about declining enrollment. We're not experiencing that at this time in Hollis or Brookline. We have 430 staff members. We have 434 active volunteers. We have 97 coaches. We have 70 substitutes. And on an annual basis, we process over 10,000 invoices through our business office. Moving to the budget comparisons. In FY23, we adopted a budget of $2,107,176. The proposed budget for FY24 is $2,268,374, which is an increase of $161,198. The adjusted budget, and the adjusted budget is the FY23 adopted budget plus any increases due to debt service, contracts, or other obligations previously incurred or mandated, minus any one-time expenses. So it's very similar but not identical to a default budget. So the adjusted budget for FY24 is $2,251,208. The proposed budget is $2,268,374. So there's a difference there of $17,166 between the adjusted and the proposed budget. Kelly and Linda were kind enough to identify our budget drivers, the major pieces. The first one is salaries, which was $52,125. $33,807 were board-approved salary adjustments for FY23. And then in December, I had brought back a recommendation to address hourly wage earners' concerns because we were very much concerned that we'd be losing human resources, accounts payable, accounts receivable, those type of positions, and the board made an adjustment of $18,318. The benefits is increasing by $22,014, and that's taxes and retirement due to the increased salaries. The budget components, in the SAU budget, salaries and benefits make up 94% of the total budget. Salaries are $1,472,579 for 65% of the budget. Benefits are $659,525 for 29% of the budget. And other components are $136,270 or 6% of the budget. And that's how we arrive at the $2,268,374. The budget categories, we look at the wages from FY23 to FY24, and we see a change or an increase of $133,016. On the benefits side, from FY23 to FY24, we see an increase of $23,377. Operations and maintenance is an increase of $1,530. Contractual benefits is a decrease of $4,675. Contracted services is an increase of $4,400. Expendable supplies is an increase of $600. Equipment and software is down by $1,025, and professional development is up by $3,975. So the total difference again is the $161,198. That brings us to the unassigned fund balance. In the SAU, any balance at the end of the year goes into the unassigned fund balance, and that is controlled via the governing board of the SAU and has to be done through a meeting, a vote, and a public hearing. So your FY23 beginning fund balance is $260,385, so $260,385. At this point, we are not projecting any fund balance use, which will mean the balance stays the same, and we're not projecting any fund balance use in FY24. So we're looking at an ending fund balance of $260,385. Our historical target for the unassigned fund balance is 7 to 10%. Presently, we're running at about 11.5%, so slightly larger than we typically try to plan on. The FY24 budget from a revenue standpoint, when we process grants and different items that come into the SAU, we're allowed to take a small percentage of indirect costs for overseeing that grant, for the work of the business office, those type of things. So that provides us approximately $4,000 worth of revenue. So our total revenue will be that $4,000. So when we look at the expenses of FY23 to 24, we have $2,268,374. We subtract the $4,000 in revenue to give us $2,264,374, and that's our total appropriation. That appropriation is broken down by district. So Brookline's share, which is approximately 20%, is $446,191. Hollis' share is approximately 30%, or $677,360. And the co-op share is 50% of that, or $1,140,823, which gives us our 100% appropriation and a total balance for the district share of $2,264,374. And that brings us to what the warrant article would read. Shall the voters of the school district adopt a school administrative unit budget of $2,264,374 for the forthcoming fiscal year in which X, which would be the assigned balance to each of the districts, is assigned to the school budget of this school district. This year's adjusted budget of $2,247,208, with assigned to the school budget of this school district, will be adopted if the article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district voters voting in this school administrative unit. And then it says the budget committee does or does not recommend this appropriation. The school board does or does not recommend this appropriation. And that takes us to any questions, and I'll turn it back over to the chair from, at this point, the public.
Okay, I will open public input for the public hearing, and I ask the public to keep your comments to 2 minutes. It is open.
Do you feel that we have the same, I know, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, it's supposed
Hold
to
on
be for
one
the
second.
public. and
Yeah, just 1 second. Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment, and I will take us out of recess and back into our meeting.
Point of order question, please, just because I'd like to ask a question within the context of the public hearing. This past year, the legislature caused school districts to be required to have a half-hour period for public comment. And I know that doesn't apply to SAU since we are a school district as an agency. Are we at all held to anything like that requirement?
I would assume we have to follow the same restrictions as well. So we will keep public input open until 7 o'clock. If someone wants to come in and have,
Well, I know that an SAU is not a school agency, but it is a public agency, and I think it applies.
but it is a municipality, and I
Yes.
believe
The
that
the spirit and the intent of the law is to provide opportunities for the public to participate in meetings. So I think the method the chair has selected to leave it open till 7 o'clock is appropriate, because that's what we've been doing at our regular district meetings.
That makes sense.
Thank you
Is
for
it
asking.
proper then to recess the public hearing?
I'm sorry. I
Is it
can't-
proper then to come out of recess for the public hearing? Would we go back into public hearing if a member of the public came within that 30-minute window?
Pardon me?
You still have public input on the agenda, so there'll be an opportunity for the public again, but at any time, the board can decide to hear the public input, whether it be about the budget or about
Hearing.
the hearing.
I
Is
don't
that-
have an objection to the process. I just wanted to comment. I appreciate the commentary on what the legislative intent is. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay. So we are back in our regular meeting,
Do we need to?
and
Yes, no, we don't need to.
we can start discussing the proposed SAU41 budget. I'd like to open it up to the SAU board. Have any questions, comments, concerns, praises? Tom?
We've seen input from the public alluding to a rapid acceleration an increase of headcount at the SAU, and I'm not hearing that. Is there a rapidly accelerating headcount at the SAU office?
I would say no. During my tenure, I believe the only pieces we added were we added one assistant business manager, and we did that by eliminating the senior secretary's position. Last year, the voters approved the addition of the communications person, but I believe the other positions.
Lance.
Thank you, and facilities director. So, and
That was
many years
that was a
ago-
position we used to have
Correct.
as well.
Correct. We did have a facilities director many years ago, and that was eliminated, and we brought that back last year. So we have been hovering, I would say, when I arrived, about at 16 and a half. And am I correct, Kelly? We're at 19?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're 19, so 2.5 over 10 years.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, both the facilities position and the communications position were presented to the voters, and the voters approved those budgets that included those positions
That's correct.
by like a 58% majority last year. Yeah.
Are we any closer to filling the assistant director for student services?
That was the position I talked about that we hope to have filled in January.
I beg your pardon, I thought you were talking about, you know what? I had a senior moment there. I was stuck on the front desk, I guess, and
That's okay. I have them all the time now. I totally understand that.
my mistake. So sorry. Is the candidate a strong one?
Very strong.
Or are the candidates? Okay.
All right.
The, on the
Tom?
matter, oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Tammy, go
Nope,
ahead.
Nope, I'll talk forever. Go ahead.
The other request that I have is if you could put into context the salary ranges that this budget covers for SAU staff in comparison to the other neighboring and equivalent districts which were benchmarked prior to the proposal. It's a leading question, but I think it's important that this information get conveyed, because what we discussed when we were preparing this was the fact that we were well below our peers, and as a result, there was significant risk. The information that was communicated to this group was that we were trying to get up into the range of equivalency, not getting higher or the highest paid, but just so that at least we're competitive. Can you comment on that, please?
I can do that. I'll highlight a couple positions that I hope will do that for you. Our accounting specialists, we're getting $23.50 an hour. The surrounding different districts, and we surveyed Milford, Wyndham, Bedford, Amherst, and Oyster River. They range from a low of $25 to a high of $31.20. In terms of the HR specialist, we pay our HR specialist $19.67. Those same 5 districts had a low of $21 and a high of $27.06. The facilities director, ours was at $81,494. Those same 5 districts, the low was $85,000. The high was $115,655. So that is why we came up with the adjustments that we made for those hourly folks, and made that adjustment in December to make us comparable, so we wouldn't lose accounting specialists, HR specialists, in items that are critical to the daily operations of the school district.
And when you say equivalent, you're not, where are you targeting in the competitive range?
We're trying to put ourselves in the middle of the pack.
Thank you.
Tammy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you have anything else?
Looking at the unassigned fund balance, and right now we're projected to be at 11.5%, which is obviously well above the range we typically expect, or target. Last year, I think we ended up just above the minimum. I think we ended up at 7.7, or isn't that right? That's a rather large difference, and I think, I hate seeing, I'm sorry, hate's a strong word. It bothers me to see our budgets, both at the school district and at the SAU level, describing money we didn't spend, unspent money on positions, unfilled positions as savings, because the opportunity cost is very substantial. I wish we could say unexpended instead. I wonder what percentage of the unassigned fund balance excess is this unexpended, for example, on the assistant director of student services, et cetera, because that's a really big chunk.
I would say the vast majority of monies that have accumulated over the years in the unassigned fund balance are a result of not filling positions.
Right.
It was very, very common when I arrived. We had a number of unfilled positions, and we worked hard as an SAU board to kind of end the in and out continuous cycle. Kelly has established a great business office that has been very, very stable, and we've done the same thing in HR. If you remember back about 5 or 6 years ago, the board kind of gave us some definite direction around HR and what they wanted, and we've been able to accomplish that. Most recently, we revamped, with Rich's retiring, revamped our IT coordination and director, and really made a push into a one-to-one school environment, which couldn't have happened without the leadership of Carol Tyler. And then we have really streamlined the curriculum process, the professional development process, coursework, evaluation systems of our staff members under Gina's leadership. So I think what we're seeing is we're not seeing those huge chunks of money. Like if you look this year, it's a significant dollar amount that could go into the unreserved fund balance. But that's directly related to an unfilled position. Other than this year, we haven't had that probably in 5 or 6 years. It's been, a few thousand here. We've been very accurate with our budgeting.
Oh, absolutely, and I agree. I just wanted to highlight the fact that it's it's not an over expenditure that raises the unassigned fund balance. It's these unexpended funds on positions that are temporarily unfilled.
And we try to identify one-time items for those funds, because if you use them to offset the budget, then you're just really kind of artificially going to increase the tax jump the following year. We'll have further discussions with the Hollis Board as owners of the building, but maybe there are some one-time things we can start to do around some of our furniture and things like that we've kind of put off over the years because we finally have a realistic balance to address that.
Okay. Tom?
Surprise. At the last meeting, we identified 2 possible uses or areas that might benefit from being funded from the unassigned fund balance. One was travel to upcoming conference. Another was funding an external resource doing some work related to the HR and salary surveys and things of that. Have either of those items been factored into the existing budget or balance?
Presently, we have not secured anybody to do what I'll call the external audit.
No, the only reason I'm saying is so there's still the possibility that we may have some future things that will benefit from the surplus and will not impact budget, but will allow us to fulfill some of our goals.
Correct. And I think in terms of the getting outside expertise is a great avenue that we can look at. We did it about, it's got to be 7 or 8 years ago. We brought in a municipal expert and they went through the SAU, and they kind of gave us a roadmap of what our business office should look like, what the HR, and we followed that, and it really has led us to a great place. So that's an opportunity where I think we can look this spring to say, okay, what areas of our efficiency do we want to look at, and get experts to come in and kind of give us an unbiased roadmap of what we need to do, and that's an excellent example of how the unassigned fund balance can be used.
Because right now, the difference between the projection and the target maximum is only $27,000.
Right.
So it's quite possible that between now and the end of the year, some items may bring that down back in the target. So to anticipate forcing it down artificially, in my opinion, would be a mistake.
And I think there's potentially going to be a need to kind of take another review of our facilities, meaning the SAU and other places, because if our enrollments do continue to grow as projected, our elementary schools are going to be bursting at the seams in a few years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Tammy, it's your turn.
All right, we're going to move on to deliberations. I would entertain a motion by someone to allocate the sum of, or to approve the FY24 budget in the total amount of $2,264,374.
So moved.
Carol, second? Second. Amy, thank you.
Now, are we approving it or are we recommending it?
I didn't hear the last part. I'm sorry.
Are we approving or recommending?
We have approve here.
You're approving it to go on the warrant.
Okay,
That's, this body controls this budget, and their approval simply puts it on each of the three warrants, so that each of the voters in both towns will vote, and this is the only time you get
no,
to
the
vote
only
on
reason I'm
one thing
asking is the
twice.
warrant article, last statement says the school board does or does not recommend this is,
But that's what, that'll come to us as a school
okay,
board.
so
and
that,
then
we're
we-
not taking that position.
No.
No.
Okay, that's
This
my
is
question.
approving to put it on to.
It's been a while.
Okay, are we ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? 13-0. Oh, I should say abstain, but it looked like everyone had their hand up, so I felt confident.
So it becomes 9-0,
Pardon me?
9-0, because it's an unrated vote is 3 per school board.
5.
9-0. Okay, thank you. All right. Now we need to get a motion to see what action the board will take regarding policy BBBH and organization and operation of SAU Governing Board, third reading and adopt.
So moved.
Carol? Second, Amy. And I think Amy was going to speak to this, if you don't mind.
Yes, I am. So this is policy BBBH. And after the comments from our last meeting, the policy committee sought guidance from the NHSBA regarding whether we needed the actual language from the RSA around the weighted voting calculation. And the recommendation from the NHSBA was to keep that in there just because of the complication, the complexity of the calculation, and the fact that new board members especially might not be familiar with it, and so they felt it was really important to have that language in the body of the policy. The policy committee discussed it. We talked about perhaps putting a hyperlink in the policy to link it directly to the RSA, but those can often break and become outdated without anyone knowing. So the policy committee is bringing forward the policy with the language as is, with the detail of the calculation in there. And I'll just mention that because the policy is optional, you don't have to keep it, in there, but that was the policy committee's recommendation. And the other, we did make a few other changes. On page 3, regarding the semi-annual meeting, we just gave ourselves a little bit of a bigger window, and we changed a few we allowed ourselves the flexibility of potentially performing a formative mid-year evaluation of a superintendent, which I don't think we've done in a while, but we have the flexibility to do it if we decide to. And those are the changes.
Thank you. Any comments, any questions? Seeing none, we will take it to a vote for third reading and adopt. All those in favor? Opposed? 9-0. I know we haven't done it by school district in a while, I guess. Yeah, I don't feel like we've needed to at this point, but we should go back. Okay. May I get a motion to amend policy BDD by identifying the category of recommended and inserting "and"?
So moved.
Following programs in the last paragraph and removing reference to BDD-F and statutory regulatory references, and accept the first reading of policy BDD, Board Superintendent Relationship, and BDDR, Board Superintendent Relations, as amended. Carol?
So moved, yes.
Second?
Sorry, I got excited.
It's a fun one. This is a good one.
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, second.
So these are just sort of housekeeping changes to keep the headers consistent with the other policies and to clean up the language, also consistent with what we've been doing with other policies, replacing he, she with they or their. And there have been no significant changes in the updates provided by the NHSBA.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. This is for first reading. All those in favor? Opposed? 9-0. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion, if I could,
Yes, Carol?
to waive the second and third readings of those policies and adopt them tonight.
The first one was adopted.
Sorry, the second, this one that we were just talking about. Yes, apologies.
Okay. Carol has made a motion to,
It would be BBD and BBDR.
okay, the motion is on the table to accept as first reading and adopt and waive second and third reading. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who did that? I'm sorry. Oh, Cindy. Thank you.
The only thing I want to clarify is it's not to accept first reading, because that's already been done. It's
Yeah.
simply to waive second and third. No, you were correct in what you said. I'm clarifying.
it
for the
improperly.
Yeah.
You know, it's the story of my life. But you rock, Carol. And so the motion should read, accept BBD and BBDR as first reading and adopt, and waive, no.
No, first reading. First reading's done. We did
So
that.
it's,
First reading.
so this is a,
The
Waive the
motion,
second and third readings of policy BDD and BDDR and adopt this evening.
did you hear that, Don? The motion is to waive the second and third readings of BBD and BBDR and adopt. Got it. And that's Carol and Cindy. Any questions other than mine?
I'd just like to verbalize it for the record that it would be reasonable to do so because the changes are so minimal and change nothing of substance.
Thank you.
Right, and I will also just say that these last few policies, this closes out sort of the review of all of the existing policies that we have at the governing board level, and it will put the next policy committee in a really good position for looking at potentially adopting new policies, because all of the existing policies will be up to date.
Well done, Policy Committee.
And might I add, our official policy review will begin in January.
Yay!
That's great, well done. That's a big accomplishment. Thank you.
Are these only being amended just for those housekeeping changes, or is it because of the time that's lapsed?
It's a combination of both. They've been on our radar screen, but they were sort of lower priority items.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the table that I don't want to repeat? Opposed?
I like doing more than one reading for public input.
Okay, pardon me?
I like doing more than one reading for public input.
Okay, then I'm going to do this by district, please. So Hollis, all those in favor?
Brooke is absent, so you have max four.
So 4-0. Brookline, all those in favor? 3, opposed? 1, okay. And co-op, all those in favor? Okay, 6-0.
They're motion sensors.
Do you want us out of here?
The motion passes. Thank you.
When we play basketball.
It passes. I'm just going to say that. We're not going to get into details about that. Okay. Can I get a motion to amend policy BDB, board officers, and its entirety by replacing it with the copy provided with the agenda and accept the first reading as amended?
So moved.
Carol? Second?
Second.
Amy? Thank you. Okay, Amy?
So again, consistent heading, just a few clarifying sentences that were included in the most recent draft from the NHSBA, just clarifying that officers remain in their offices until successors are elected. If the chairperson resigns, the vice chairperson will become the chairperson of the board. Clarifies that the superintendent is a non-voting member, and also allows the flexibility for the treasurer to possibly present the SAU budget at the budget hearing.
Okay, any questions? Tom?
The position of the superintendent as a member of the board, is that of this board?
Yes.
And that's always been there? It's, the only thing is
Yeah.
the non-voting portion of it?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I do think it's a good idea because we changed it to keep it as a first reading.
There's a lot in here to
Correct.
keep it has to stay as a first reading.
Yep.
So,
Don't worry, I'm not going to make a motion that Chris will
okay. Any other questions, concerns? Tom?
I'm wondering why the decision was made to make the treasurer take away the requirement of being responsible for the budget hearing.
We just took it away because I think the practice has been in the past couple of years that Superintendent Corey has actually presented the budget at the public hearing.
I understand that that's what we've done. And that's not something that I've been particularly supportive of because it sort of appears to take away from the board's understanding, comprehension, and involvement. I think from a perception standpoint as well as from a perspective, we had a lot of value when it was being presented by a board member and that it added to the credibility of it in terms of dealing with the public. It wasn't like we were rubber stamping things. And I, for one, would like to keep it as shall and start going by that practice.
Is that you volunteering to be treasurer? Is that you volunteering to be treasurer?
We'll see when the next year comes around.
I agree with
support
Tom.
the same view.
Pardon me?
I support the same view because I believe that the budget is ours, and we should be promoting it to our community and taking that ownership. Otherwise, it looks as though our superintendent is trying to convince and I think it puts too much on the superintendent. I think this is an opportunity for us to own it, present it, and defend it.
I see great value in the superintendent's participation, but I think there's value in a presentation coming from the board for something that the board owns. I would welcome the superintendent's viewpoint on it, whether you think it would be a positive or negative impact to the SAU as a whole to revert back to that prior practice.
So my only question is, let's say the treasurer is sick on the night this is supposed to be presented. Would it being stated as shall cause a problem if they weren't available?
So maybe, I was gonna bring up kind of the same thing, or maybe it's someone who that is categorically very uncomfortable for them to have to do. I wonder if we could do, as we've done in other policies, the treasurer or their designee from the governing board shall be responsible.
Having done this job and not being memory, and you can ask the staff, I have to have everything absolutely clear before I can present to you what I've learned, which is the value of Tom's point, and which I agree with completely. I recall that we had a treasurer who could not attend the presentation one year, and staff did do the presentation. So there does need to be language that takes a contingency into account. I wouldn't want to support any suggestion that the superintendent presenting in any fashion undermines the veracity or integrity of the presentation. But having been the representative of this board for this purpose in the past 1 year, I felt, and prior to my involvement, previous members of this board fulfilling that role, there is something, there is a quality of teaching the board by having one of us become the student and really ingesting it, really learning it, really grasping the nuances and being able to answer the questions that speaks to our voters in a way that a staff member or an administrator can't. It's not the same, and I just agree with Tom.
Another excuse me, point that was brought up recently is we should be writing a policy that is not individual dependent. We happen to have a superintendent who is extremely understanding of the budget and adept. That has not always been the case for us as far as their ability to present it in a manner that was clear to understand. Andy has made the budget process an absolute priority for him. It shows up in his reviews. All aspects of his involvement in budgeting has been exemplary. But it's not categorically true of all superintendents. When you put it in May, it has the ambiguity of how will that decision be made and by whom. So if you do want to have it as the possibility of deferring it, I would like to have the wording suggest that the board makes the decision to make the move. If people are uncomfortable with an absolute, at least give the board ownership of determining who presents.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay,
a good point.
The one problem with that, Tom, though, is that what happened with the one time that I remember the assistant business administrator did.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, I recall the 1 year that the business administrator did step up was due to a contingency that came up like the day before or that night. There wasn't a chance for the board to make a decision early enough to assign it to a different board member. You see what I'm getting at? It was like.
Yeah, and we're in first reading right now.
Right, I think that can be grappled with in policy.
Yes, exactly. I think we
Yeah,
are
I
hearing
think-
what you say, and I've taken some
I think it's coming
notes.
back to policy, this is
Yep.
the first reading,
Yep.
and I think you guys have,
Yes, I
everyone's gotten
understand.
enough.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. All those in favor of first reading? Opposed? 9-0, thank you. And now need a motion to amend policy CB, school superintendent, by identifying the category of recommended and accepted the first reading of policy CB and CBR, duties of the superintendent, as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
The changes here are housekeeping, just the consistent title and changing his, her to their.
And no changes to CBR, correct?
I think there may have been some, just some capitalization changes. We capitalized superintendent. I don't think we highlighted all of those, but that's the only change, yep.
any questions? Comments for first reading? Okay, all those in favor of first reading? Opposed? Okay, 9-0. All right, now we are going to move on to the superintendent's evaluation process. Timeline, confirm assignments, and explain process, and Super Amy is going to do that as well.
So at this point, each individual board member should have received a link to the Google form to fill out the superintendent's evaluation. And we ask that those be done by December 31st. At that point, the chairs or their designee will put together a consolidated district-level evaluation that will be discussed in a non-public session of each individual board's January board meeting. At that point, the ratified district-level evaluations will come to me, and I will put together a consolidated evaluation of all three districts' evaluations. The spec committee will meet and discuss that, and we will bring forward a consolidated evaluation at our February governing board meeting. We will ratify it at that meeting, and then the spec committee will present it to Superintendent Corey before the end of February. And the only other piece is that we'll also solicit feedback from the building level administrators as well as senior staff at the SAU to get their input as well.
Yeah, and I really do encourage everyone to try to get those done as soon as possible, because it really does help the, everyone to, I mean, but the chairs especially, when they can get the stuff together a lot faster, and then it can go in our meetings, and then it can go to the spec committee and come to our February meeting. Okay. All right, we are at the part, does anyone have any questions or comments on that? Jeez, you guys, this is like record. Okay, I need a motion to go into non-public under
Can I ask a
RSA.
quick question? Just circling back to the very beginning. You talked about January 2nd. Isn't that a federal holiday, that Monday? We went right into public hearing, so I couldn't ask that.
Oh, okay.
Right, but on the calendar, each of the boards approved, that's a school day.
Okay,
so
so
what
we
we're
messed
going
up
to-
then.
No, we don't automatically get federal holidays,
No?
like President's
No.
Day.
No, Martin,
School on the 23rd of December, where the districts do, so.
Okay,
so, but we are going
Got
to
it.
make that adjustment this week, and then my plan is Thursday morning to notify families so they have plenty of time to plan.
okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I assumed it was off.
Some feedback, everyone's Okay.
Andy,
excited.
are you saying you're still deciding because it has to go in front of the
Brookline.
Brookline Conversation Board?
Correct.
Board for conversation?
Collegiate board?
Okay.
The Bureau matter of conversation.
So now I need a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-3:3, Roman numeral 2, under A, compensation, and/or C, reputation.
Do you need to read it, do you need me to read it through, or are you good?
I think I'm good.
So moved.
Carol? Second?
Second.
Put Kate on there, a little variety. We need a roll call vote for this. So if we could begin with Mr. Solon?
Tom, I.
Cindy, aye.
Kate, aye.
Holly, aye.
Tom, I.
Rob, aye.
Krista, aye.
Amy, aye.
Carol Roy, aye.
Kelly, aye. Karen, aye.
Ken, I.
Tammy, aye.
Allison, aye.
Okay, motion carries. We are now in non-public. I do need a secretary.